Here on this beautiful spring afternoon. I'm glad that you were able to come to class today and that you overcame your fears. And thank you so much to our visitors today. We've got some new faces in the room, which of course is important because we want to have an audience. And we're thrilled to have you here, our guests today, to hear students from COM 102 talk about some of the work they've been doing all semester long. By the way, my name is Mike McGuire, and I'm a composition teacher here at Moraine, and this is my COM 102 class presenting for you all today. We got a pretty cozy group, but like I said, we're thrilled to have some unfamiliar faces in the room, but we also have an audience that goes far beyond this classroom because today's event is being recorded by our wonderful multimedia people. Thank you. And that means the video will be archived in our library and will be searchable for future students and researchers who are studying issues similar to those that the students in today's presentation have studied. They may find those in the future as they're doing their own research and be inspired and informed and influenced by that work. So this is a good thing. It'll also be made available on the library's YouTube site. So the audience is bigger than the room that we have here today. Now, I know I'm far more excited about that than perhaps many of the speakers are today because, we have some nerves. But that's okay. You'll be thankful later on knowing that you're informing so many other people beyond the confines of this room. All right, so this is a research class for those of you who don't know, and the students studied many pressing social issues that are affecting our communities this semester, all semester long, through traditional library research, but also by getting out of the library and into the field, so to speak, through service learning work, which we used as field work research. They combined service with the community along with practicing their civic skills as well as enhanced academics to come together. This intersection of these three things is what I call critical service learning. The aim of the whole thing, of course, is to affect positive, meaningful change within our communities. Students worked with over 23 separate organizations on issues ranging from food insecurity and homelessness to animal rights, early childhood education, ecological restoration, and everything in between. A lot of good work being done by all of our speakers today. All of this research and writing has been aimed at affecting positive social change in our communities. And today, everybody here and the people in the future audience of our videotape, every one of you is a part of that change. So please listen carefully to these speakers today as they call you to action, but also as they talk about the story of themselves, the story of us, and most importantly, the story of right now. Okay, so I will turn it over to our first speaker, Bara.
Hi everyone, how are you? I'm Bara Awad. Today I'll be talking about the Cancer Support Center. I personally lost many people with cancer, from family members, my grandma, my uncle, my young uncle actually. I know how people suffer from going through people you lost with cancer and people with cancer, how they suffer through their just through their medication and to the chemo they have to take and all that. So I did some research. I know more than 150 people die in a day with cancer, according to the National Cancer Institute, which makes it 1 of 4 deaths in the United States, that's people with cancer. So I did my service learning about the cancer. I went to the Cancer Support Center, and that's some program they offer about, it's not just about people with cancer, about people, caregivers. You don't have to be personally giving the care to them. If you just know a neighbor that they suffer through cancer, you see them around walking or something, you just feel for them. You're more than welcome to go to get some help, to volunteer. I volunteered there a couple of times through the semester. I know they give a lot of programs about, just everything, some nutrition advice. They do some cooking classes. They do some yoga. They do some massages for people who suffer with cancer. And It's a free organization. You don't have to pay anything for that. And also, as I just did some research, 70% of people with cancer are from the low or the middle class, which is they don't have the money to pay for their medical health. That's according to the World Health Organization. So I know I'm not going to say long, but everyone should care, because I know like everyone have lost or see someone they suffer from cancer. And that's it. That's like some. You're more welcome to look at it. And that's the director of the outreach of the center. You can call her, give her an email. She'll respond right away. They always need some people to volunteer. They're having a walk that's coming soon. They need some volunteers too. I would be there. I will be there actually. And that's it. I'll turn it over to, I don't know, to you or yeah.
Hello. Do you care about environmental protection? To be honest, I never had any interest in environmental protection in my early years. To be honest, I also believe that protecting the environment actually was the work of the government. However, the volunteer work changed my thought about environmental protection. My volunteer work at Palos Restoration was a life-changing moment. For the first time, I came into contact with people who cared about the environment. The volunteer work at Palos Restoration surprised me because a lot of volunteers and ecologists came together to volunteer. Especially, I met one lady there, and she looked a little bit older than I was, and she told me that she has been volunteering for 5 years. The volunteer work at Palos Restoration was the first time to change my thought about environmental protection. It is not only about the government's work, but also our work. The world today faces numerous environment issues. Human activities such as industrialization and poor planning have interfered with the world ecosystems. Environmental pollution and deforestation have led to the greenhouse effect, global warming, and soil erosion. The United States, just like any other industrial power, contributes to environmental contamination. Environmental contamination such as carbon dioxide and nitrogen monoxide are released every minute in the airspace by U.S. industries. According to the International Conference on Protecting the Environment in 2014, the U.S. contributes 16% CO2 emissions, mostly from the coal industries. Despite these shocking figures, most people have remained ignorant of the value of protecting the environment. Although many people are aware of the urgency to protect the environment, they don't take any action, just like me in the past. According to Environmental Law Institute, the world has already lost 80% of its forest cover, and most of its inhabitants don't plant a tree for their lifetime. Also, only 76% of American youth believes in solving climate change, while 24% are totally ignorant of environmental issues. The role of protecting the environment is for all of us. We need to be involved in environmental protection activities. We can always volunteer in environmental protection agencies. Doing more research on environmental pollution can help humanity to understand better ways of protecting the environment. Also, we should always safeguard the environment in our daily activities. Always save power, water, and any other industrial product. If we don't protect the environment, global warming and other environmental issues will continue to get worse, and our children will suffer. Therefore, come and join in on this long journey and protect our environment to make the world a better place for our children. Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Christian Gill, and my social issue is homelessness. So I'm going to start off with 3 stories. Renee Delisle was won over from 3,500 homeless people in Santa Cruz when she found out she was pregnant. The Santa Cruz Sentinel reported that she was turned away from a shelter because they did not have space for her. While other homeless people slept in cars or under garbage cans, Renee ended up living under an abandoned elevator shaft when her water broke. Jerome Mordo, 56 years old. He's a homeless former Marine. He was arrested for trespassing into a public housing stairwell on a cold night. And he later died that night, actually a week later, in the jail cell that he was contained in. Paula Korb had 2 daughters, lost her home, and lived in a minivan for 4 years. They did laundry in a church annex, went to the bathroom at gas stations, and did their studies under street lamps, according to America Tonight. On any given night, there are 600,000 people homeless in America. That's a lot of people. And this is according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, right? So I can sit here and I can stand in front of you and I can tell you all the facts, right? I can tell you till I'm blue in the face everything about homelessness, but it's not going to really mean much, to be honest, right? So today, we have all these people listed up, all these people lined up, going to present their presentations on their social issue. They're going to tell you, they're going to try to cause you to action, right? So what I'm going to do right now, all I can do is pull out some type of compassion that's in each and every one of us. I know it is, because especially the people that volunteered their time to come here. You have some compassion in you, but what I'm going to try to do in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to try to pull it out. All right, so why should you care? Why should we care about homelessness? That's somebody you're going to see every single day. Whether you haven't or not, I'm not going to lie, I already seen somebody today. I saw someone yesterday on my way home from church. You see the people in the middle of the street that lined up. They have the cards. They have the cardboards. What can you do? You're going to drive past every single time? I actually gave someone something yesterday. Speak to them. Shake their hand. That's all they're really looking for sometimes. And maybe they can even use a Subway sandwich or something. But why should you care? What's your name, sir? Yeah. Tom. That could be your family member. What's your name? Erica. That's another family member. That can be your uncle, your aunt, your cousin. Why should you care? That could be you. All right? Nobody wants to be in that situation. No, that doesn't make me better than somebody else. I can help them. That doesn't make me in a better position. I'm in a position to help. Each and every one of us is in a position to help. And if you're in a position to help and you don't do that, what are you doing with your life? Right? So, we have a few things you can do to help out. But I'm not asking you to devote your life to it. Everybody has their things to do, you know. I got work. I have things to do. I'm sure you do too. Everybody has to go to school. But one little thing that you can do can go miles. It can go far. It can change somebody's life. Donate. You can donate toys. You can donate clothes. You can donate food. You don't have to change your life, but you can help somebody out each and every day. Don't keep driving right past them. You don't have to do that. Make the decision to change somebody's life today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Heenan. Have you ever walked through a hospital and seen those people with their dogs? Kind of a strange question, right? See a dog in a hospital? Well, that was me. In 2014, I certified my pit bull to become a certified support dog. Lily is a pit bull mix that I rescued about 6 years ago, and she has been such a rewarding companion in my family. She was so big and so spunky, and I thought, wow, I have so much cut out for me, but she ended up being the most loving and sweet dog I've ever owned. It all started when my mom got sick in 2014, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. I noticed what a huge impact Lily made on whether she had a good day or a bad day. Even on her worst days, my mom would lay in bed for hours. Lily wouldn't get up. She would sit there on hours on end. Or on her good days, she would motivate her to go for a small walk outside. It was just those little things that made me realize that I can make a difference in somebody else's life. I started to put Lily through a series of training steps, and around 2 months later, she was certified with her own personal red vest. I was able to bring her into hospitals, parks, buildings, anything I wanted to. And I finally started to bring her into my local hospital when my mom would go in for treatments. And I noticed what huge smiles she put on the people's faces, mostly the older people. They would just go up to her and pet her and love her, and it was so rewarding knowing that I can do that for them, just something little. Except for one day, I noticed when I brought her into the children's side of the hospital, many families would bring their children super close to them and wouldn't let them near her. And I really didn't know why when just a couple hours ago she was bringing so much happiness to somebody. And then finally I heard someone whisper about, what a horrible breed of dog she was, or how untrustworthy they are. And I finally realized it was because she was a pit bull. Why is such a stigma placed on this breed? When dated all the way back to the 1800s, pit bulls were known as America's dog. Why the sudden change? It was simple, because us humans put it on them. Now we associate pit bulls with dog fighting, drugs, gangs, so on. And because of this, 90% of dogs in shelters are pit bulls and pit mixes. I saw this firsthand when I started doing my service learning at the Animal Welfare League. And if not 99% of the dogs there, all of them were pit bulls, or some kind of a pit bull descent. In what way can we change this? With supporting evidence, there are so many things that pit bulls are known for: farming, protecting, watching over young children, and providing rewarding companionship. In today's society, we strive for equality and diversity, and goals in creating less biased communities based on race, ethnicity, cultures, and religion. If we have the same goal for humanity, why can't we push those efforts into all beings around us? With all the access we have to news sources and social media, we should be able to break these biases. But we can't. We just seem to be strengthening them. According to Save a Pit Bull research organization, about 75% of shelters euthanize pit bull right upon intake, and only 1 in 600 pits will find a forever home. How do we expect to treat one another equally or with respect if we can't even do it for animals? Now, with unity on the rise, we can stop these biases for all dog breeds. Educating ourselves on these issues is the easiest thing we can do. With an average of 73% of Americans owning a pet, it all begins with you. As I said before, it is not the breed, it is the human. Being a responsible owner is where the issue lies entirely. If you see somebody walking on the side of the street with a very well-trained dog next to them, not pulling them down the street, you're not going to be afraid to go up to them. If you have a pit bull, make sure you train them properly, get moderate exercise, limit them with boundaries, rules, and socialize them regularly. These are the easy things we can do as pet owners. I would have never thought rescuing a pit bull on the side of the road would have changed my life and so many others around me. Adopting or rescuing is just one way you can save many lives. The benefits of adoption are endless. You have a great animal, it will cost you less, you will stop puppy mills and breeders and so on. But one of the most rewarding things is you will save a life. It is as easy as adopting, training, and having a wonderful pet, or having a wonderful support dog like Lily. Thank you.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Hernandez. I'm 18. So I lived on the south side of Chicago most of my life until I moved in 2008 to a little town in northwest Indiana. So that little town, just 15 minutes away from the beach. You got some dunes out there. It's real nice, real pretty, real big. So finally having like an experience like that, to see something that was formed naturally, was really, I don't know, a change of pace for me, having lived in a pretty major city most of my life. So in 2015, I went to Wyoming after having accidentally passed through a little road trip. And it was, I don't know, not life-changing, but it definitely changed my perspective on things. Showed me that there were definitely other things to see besides, just, I don't know, working your whole life and, I don't know. So, Wyoming definitely changed my life. I saw Yellowstone, the Badlands, all out there. And I don't know, I genuinely believe that everyone should see it at least once in their lives, even if, only for a week or whatever. But that feeling of wanting people to see it made me think of future generations. And you look at the news and there's, nations that are industrializing rapidly, then they don't have regulations. People that just really either politicize the science behind climate change, or they just think, oh, well, I don't do that, or why should I, change my life if, it's not having an immediate change. But, climate change does have an immediate change right now, and so a lot of people fall into the mindset of, oh, well, I'm just one person, what can I do? Might as well just do nothing. But, and I'll admit it that, I felt like that at one point. But I was like, okay, well, I'll go out there and do something, even if it's just locally. So for our little service learning projects for COM 102, I decided to work with the Payless Restoration Project. They do work here, just 15 minutes away at the little forest preserves they have. And so I went out with Jack and Young for a day, a couple hours. And, after working with about 15 other people for a couple hours, I realized, how much of a difference we actually made, removing invasive species and all that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll come out again. So I went out again on my own about a week later. And that feeling of, okay, well, I'm not the only one that feels like this. Other people care too. It's just that they need to find a way to do something. They need ideas. They don't really have the push to do it. So going out there, I was thinking, I'll bring out some family next week or whatever, and they'll bring out more people. And taking a couple hours out of your weekend, even once, it's really not a big deal. Anyone can do it. Take some family, take some friends like I did, and you can definitely make a big difference, even if it's only small, because if everyone makes a difference, then, we can change the world. All right. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erica. Today I was going to be discussing homelessness and why it's important to me. So I was raised up by a single mother who had me at the age of 15 and had her second child by the time she was 17. Growing up, it was definitely difficult. Growing up in the position we were in, she didn't have a job. She didn't have a high school degree. She didn't have a college degree. She pretty much dropped out when she had me. We didn't have much money. We were kicked out of apartments. It was just really bad. And at the age of 5 is when my aunt and uncle decided to step in because it was just pretty bad, where she just didn't have any money. She was leaving me unattended, leaving my little brother and me just not taking care of us as she should have. And I'm sorry. And I just think that that's pretty much why it's always been something that's just been an important issue to me, because I kind of seen it firsthand. Granted, it's not bad where she's on the streets and asking for money and stuff, but I feel like in her position she could have been very much so had she not started receiving the certain help that she needed. She did suffer from a mental illness as well, so that's partially the reason why she was without a job for a long time. To this day, she could call me, and just probably last month she would call me and ask to borrow money. Could you imagine being a child and having your mother ask you for money because she needs food? So I think that's why it's such a big issue to me, and I think that it should be a big issue to everybody. Because like Christian said, it could very well be anybody you know. It could be a mother, it could be a brother. So when I see people on the streets, it just makes me, it reminds me of my mother, because she could be very well in that same predicament. And people just walk past and ignore people, not realizing that they not always need money. They could just need help, guidance. They just need certain skills to know, to get a job, to receive the help that they need, maybe help to a doctor. All it takes is stopping and getting to know that person to understand their story and their background. So I'm asking all of you, so if you see somebody on the street, just get to know them, understand their situation, don't judge them. Just listen and decide at that point in time what's the best thing to do for them. It's just so much that could be done that people don't do. And I think that that's the biggest part of homelessness. We all have something to contribute. We all could do anything, and that's all we really need. I think how we have the Big Brother organization, where people mentor and have the Big Brother organization, I think that it should be instilled into schools where maybe not grammar schools, but high schools and college, where we can actually mentor somebody who's in help with need with making resumes, stuff that could also help yourself and help them. Just giving food, clothes. It doesn't have to be money, because I know like sometimes everyone's struggling. Sometimes I do have to tell my mom, no, I can't. I'm sorry. Like, I want to. I really wish I could. I'd give her my last dollar, but like I have bills too. Like, and I just do with everything else I can when I can't give her money to try to help her get to what she needs to do. And I think that that's what we all need to do for everybody else when we see somebody. Homeless shelters are very common nowadays, and I think that's played a big role in it. I think maybe just even having knowledge about that and knowing where to volunteer would be great. But that's all I really much have. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Mahmoud, and today I'm going to be discussing issue that's very common, but I really think it's very important to actually take more consideration into this topic, because it's happening even more and more. So, as a child, I remember like being different or having different interactions with different children. When we're young, we really don't notice problems with other students as we do now when we're older, because we're just still young. We have innocent minds. We really don't know what we're doing. Unless it's a big difference where someone can actually point it out, then that's when bullying starts, with picking on people and stuff. So my topic today is about children bullying, and I didn't personally experience bullying at all anyway, but I had an experience where I witnessed it, and it was a close friend of mine. So I had a close friend, her name was Amna, and she came from overseas, and she didn't speak any English at all whatsoever. So when she was learning how to speak English, she had a very tough accent. It was very rough. She had language barriers, and that made it easy for other students to try to pick on her and, mimic her and humiliate her. So then I noticed that she stopped coming to school. She didn't want to come to school anymore. She just wasn't engaging with other students. She didn't want to be in activities. And coming from overseas to learn a new language is very hard, because I speak from experience on that. I went to my own country, and I didn't know how to speak Arabic, and I had a very bad accent when I went there, too. So I kind of understood where she was at. So she ended up not wanting to come to school anymore, and it made it hard for her, because she always had in the back of her head that she'll always be mimicked. So it's according to DoSomething.org, they say that over 3.2 million students get bullied each year, and 160,000 teens skip school every day because of bullying. Imagine you have someone, or you yourself, get bullied for the way you look, the way you talk, the way you speak. I feel like this all comes back from how the child was raised, whether their parents were actually, teaching them how to accept and respect other people. It's not a pleasant feeling for students to go through, especially because everybody has a right and deserves to get an education. So I don't think that you should be uncomfortable in an environment where you should be getting an education. And then, like I said, my friend, she stopped coming to school because she didn't feel comfortable anymore, and I think that shouldn't happen to kids. Why does bullying occur? There's many reasons of why bullying occurs. It can be something simple as the bully themselves is being bullied, or they just find comfort in whatever they're doing. The way to prevent it is very easy, and it's very simple, and I believe that it's really doable. There's many ways, but the most way that I believe it could be prevented is if there's more communication with children. If we communicate with our children, there's a way we can mentor them, because children are at a young age where they pick up on things easily and quickly. So we should have them pick up on things that are positive and build onto those characteristics when they're older. So when they're older, they don't have bullying habits or anything. Again, with the communication, mentoring is a big advantage. When you mentor your child, you're really being a role model to them, and you're telling them what's right from wrong, so they have an idea of what to be when they become older. Also, engaging in activities with children, whether it's after school or activities during school, I think that would all make a difference. And really just mentoring and communicating with children. And it's a very easy thing to do. It doesn't take time. And that's it.
Hi, my name's Caitlin, and I have been trying to answer a question for most of the semester now. In the beginning of the semester, we were asked if we thought that one person could change the world. I go back and forth. Martin Luther King, Gandhi. I sometimes can't even get my homework done. I can't realize how one person can change the world. With this project, I have been researching extreme poverty, and I would like to share with you a story of a boy named Fred. Fred lived in Congo, and he lived with his parents and his sister, and rebels invaded his hut, and they killed his parents, and they raped his sister, and they burned her alive in the hut, and they lost everything. The rebels, before leaving, burned the bottom of Fred's foot, and without any medical care or law enforcement, he would paint tar on the bottoms of his feet for protection. It's something that's common in places that suffer from extreme poverty. According to World Bank, there's 10.7% of our population living under extreme poverty, which means that they're living from $1.90 per person per day. For us, that's sometimes more money than it takes for us to commute to work or a store. The story of Fred is a true story, and it was told to me by Mona Purdy. She is the founder of Share Your Souls, the organization that I worked with. She knows him personally because she gave him his first pair of shoes. There are, unfortunately, a lot others like Fred who are suffering from the extreme poverty, and they suffer from illnesses as simple as diarrhea. And I know that's uncomfortable, but it should be. It is. They need us. They need our help. That's something that shouldn't be putting people to death. It can stop, and it has been improvements made. But Fred can't be here to tell you his story, and his story is the story of another, so that is a story of self. So I will ask you on behalf of Fred to please help, just by simply putting a pair of shoes in the containers. They have Share Your Souls. I know they have personal ones all over. There are shoes that we have that we don't even wear as often that just sit. Just by giving that could be somebody's first pair of shoes that they ever have. They could use them on their walks for water and to get around. The tar on their feet isn't healthy either. We can't turn our backs on them. And if anybody else was struggling to answer the question if one person can change a life like I was, I just thought about how Fred would answer. Because I believe that Mona Purdy single-handedly did change his world, and we could do that for others also. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack O'Connor. A little bit about myself. I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about environmental restoration today. I grew up as a Catholic in a Catholic community, which would probably make some people think that I dedicated a lot of my time and effort to charity and service. I grew up, like I said, in a Catholic community with a lot of Catholic people. Both my parents were Catholic. But in all honesty, Catholicism didn't really play that big of a role on the religious aspect of my life. But I did go through Catholic high school and Catholic grammar school, which had a big impact on another area, which is service and the improvement of our community and our world. So even though most of that service wasn't that I completed, it was required, it wasn't done on my own behalf, it definitely opened my eyes to another part of the world and how important service is. And so it led me to do service kind of on my own time. And so the way I see it, service can range from small acts to major acts. There's all kinds of service, but there's a responsibility that we all have to complete service. So it doesn't matter what you do, like spontaneously walking down the street and seeing that someone needs help, that and doing so, that service, or something that takes a lot of time and planning and effort, that's also service. But one form of service that I become particularly intact with this semester is service learning. And what I got out of service learning is that it's going into the field and kind of getting information and all this stuff and getting experience and putting it back in to your work. So there were a few different options for service learning this semester, and those consisted of all the ones we've listened to today so far, but the one that really stuck out to me was environmental restoration. And my first service learning opportunity was at Swallow Cliff Woods, right in the Palos area, and it was with the Palos Restoration Project. And what I did was I showed up to Swallow Cliff Woods with a few of my classmates, and in this opportunity, we were informed about invasive species, specifically the Asian honeysuckle plant, which can basically wipe out biodiversity. And why that's important is because there's there's other organisms that depend on the plants that the Asian honeysuckle is taking over. And even us, it comes all the way back to us as humans, because we may depend on some of those organisms that the honeysuckle is taking over. And the Asian honeysuckle isn't the only invasive species. There's so many, which is why it's so important that we engage in this work. And the entire surrounding area was covered with this plant. And there were about 15 to 20 people in my group that day. And we made some pretty good progress for that number, but to really make an impact, I knew we needed more people to contribute. And the good news is getting involved is super easy. You can go online to the Palos Restoration Project website, which is www.restorepalos.com, and you can go to any organization, but this is the one that I obviously work for. And they have a few events every single week, and you can go whenever you want. You don't even have to sign up in advance. You could just go to the website calendar and find out where and when these events are and show up. You don't have to go every week. It could even be once or twice a month. Just go when you can, really. Don't even make a set time. Just go whenever you can. Like I said, it doesn't have to be all the time. And you can bring a friend or a family member, but just don't make it feel like it's a chore, because you can just have fun with it. And that's what the people at the Palos Restoration Project and the people who do the work for them, that's what they do, is have fun with it. So doing your part really makes a huge difference. Don't look at the big picture. Just think small. Because if you look at the big picture, you're just going to get discouraged and think change is impossible. But small changes are a great start, and they make a big difference in the long run. So I encourage all of you here today to get involved and to get others to get involved, because this is our world and we should want to make it a better place. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Perez. I am 22 years old. I am a business law major, and I just have a story for you. I volunteered at a couple soup kitchens in downtown Chicago and some of the roughest areas of the city, and I was introduced to this man, Tony. Tony was a unique individual. He was very soft-spoken, very well-mannered, but Tony was hungry, and he just wanted a conversation with someone. So as I was volunteering throughout the day, I couldn't help but notice Tony. Tony always caught my eye. And interacting with Tony, I later found out that he was a U.S. Marine Corps veteran who was homeless, and he was a man who was diagnosed with PTSD. His wife and kids left him. He would have these anger outbreaks from PTSD, and I immediately clicked with Tony right away. Last summer, I was diagnosed with PTSD myself. I went through a traumatic event where I tore my ACL, and it tore completely. So I immediately clicked with Tony, because we were both going through this thing, PTSD, of struggling with having these nightmares and having these traumatic brain events that were going on. I later learned that hunger just affects you physically, mentally, and emotionally. It affects us physically because it wears our body down. Emotionally, Tony was struggling because he had lost his wife, his kids, and he's going through a mental illness on his own by being a homeless veteran. It also affects us emotionally, because you ever hear of the term hangry? Oh, I'm hangry. How it really affects us when we get hungry. It affects our moods. Well, Tony was struggling with being food insecure. Here in the United States, very seldom do we have someone starve to death, but the USDA did qualify us as food insecure. Food insecurity is just a lack of food to the point of near starvation, and 1 in 6 Americans face food insecurity. That's a number that's way too high. Nobody should go hungry, in my opinion, but households with kids rise this number to about 20%, while individuals who live alone or just with a partner are at about 12%. To put this into perspective for you all, that's about 48 million Americans here living in the United States with food insecurity. About 13 million of those are kids. Economically, this has a huge impact on our economy because, according to the Center of American Progress, the annual cost of food insecurity is $130.5 billion due to illnesses caused by hunger. $130.5 billion a year is spent on food insecurity here in the United States. Personally, I think that's way too much. I think that number should be way lower because we could be spending that money, instead of treating people to get cured for their illnesses that are associated with this, I think we could be doing more productive things like educating kids or moving these homeless people to houses and providing houses for the homeless. And there's so many other things that we could be doing with this money if we just cared. So this is what's going on here in the United States, but what about globally? Globally, it's at a way worse scale. I worked with a service learning project called Feed My Starving Children. It is a volunteer-based organization that packs food for countries overseas. They have this scientifically proven food that they make. It's called a manna pack. And this manna pack is scientifically proven to combat malnutrition while providing food for the individual. They have an efficiency rating of 91% in their spending budget as a non-for-profit business. Feed My Starving Children is a non-for-profit organization charity, and to have a 91% efficiency rating with their money just shows that when you donate, they're being efficient with the money that you give them. 98.7% delivery success rating globally. So 98.7% of the food that they send overseas actually reaches these kids and actually reaches these people, so they do get the food they need. Feed My Starving Children has 4 stars in Charity Navigator for 12 years running, and 4 stars in Charity Navigator is the highest honor that a charity can receive when being a non-for-profit business. So I encourage you guys to just get involved. Sign up online or go to the warehouse directly in Aurora and just sign up for a 2-hour slot. Just this 2 hours time slot can impact not only yourself, because it changes yourself, it changes your thoughts, because they do show you a little video on who you're impacting, but this changes the lives of people overseas. Just this 2 hours of time that you do, this work that you do to pack this food and make this food for this kid, will change their life forever. You may not see it as much, but this is essential for the kids to keep them alive, and it's just so impactful, and it just helps you out. To conclude, my favorite quote is by John Bunyan, and it says, "You have not lived until you have done something for someone who cannot repay you." Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cindy, and my topic is food insecurity. But before I go into that, I like to talk about my experiences and a little bit about my parents. So growing up, I was raised with my 5 brothers. You can imagine how that must be. We're all fighting all the time. And growing up, it was really hard feeding all of us because we were so many kids. And so my parents didn't make enough money. My mom didn't have a job. My dad would make just enough for the bills. And so that really impacted us, and we had to reduce consumptions. And we would have to use credit cards and increase our debts because we had to purchase groceries through that, and we needed it. And there was times where we had to go to food pantries because there was no money. And this is when I realized that my parents meant a lot to me because they do so much for me just to bring food on the table, and I'm sorry. I didn't realize the importance of my parents being there feeding us, and my parents they didn't have as much as we do now, but I can only imagine how much more pain they must have been growing up. My parents would tell me, "Oh, Cindy, back in our day when we were 10 years old, we didn't even have meat every day. We would only eat meat once a day." Or sorry, take that back. Meat every 3 months or so. I'm sorry. And that caused my aunt to have chronic migraines. And that was a big implication that it had for my family growing up with food insecurity. And so I did a service learning at St. Blaise Food Pantry, located in Summit, Illinois. And I wasn't just packing cans and organizing things. No, I wasn't just doing that. I was, contributing. My big contribution was my translation, Spanish to English and English to Spanish. That was my service learning. For me, that's my service learning. And one of the situations that I encountered was from a Venezuelan lady who was new to this country with her 2 kids. And she was struggling to get food on the table for her kids as they came back from school. She was telling me, to translate for the sister, that I really, really need milk and juice for the day. I really need it. And although it wasn't a day of food pantry, the sister agreed to give milk and juice for the day because she was really in need. And this is when I realized that my translation was actually a very big service in my contribution. And so I want you to understand that your skills and abilities are worth something. My contribution with Spanish to English and English to Spanish is a big contribution because if I hadn't done that, who would have? Sisters didn't speak any Spanish. They speak Romanian and Polish. So that was my big contribution. And so now that I've talked about my experiences, I want to remind you something. You are not alone, whether you are going through it or not. I want you to recognize, each of you, recognize your abilities and skills. Use those skills. And remember, you are somebody. You're not just a number. You're more than that. And those skills and abilities that you have, contribute them. Use them. They're there for a reason. So I want you to take those skills. I don't care if it's Spanish. I don't care if you're a cooker. I don't care. Just use those skills and contribute to the issues, whether it's food insecurity or not. Use those skills. Those skills will get you through anything. I promise you that. And these effects are long-lasting. I promise you that. And another thing, imagine all the pain that you could have if you were food insecure. Imagine the mental implications and the health. Growing up, I've had lots of chronic migraines, and that's due to my food insecurity experiences, but it's nothing compared to my parents, of course. And I don't want this to keep going and going. So it's already low on the spectrum of food insecurity than it already is. So let's make a great change, and that all starts with you guys. Thank you.
Hi, my name is DAngelo Robinson. I've always had a great heart and wanted to help people. I grew up in poverty, roaches, in apartments. I seen mothers smoking, babies starving, the ghetto, hell, slums, whatever you want to call it. Nobody was role models. Everybody was alcoholics in the neighborhood. The younger youth from 14 and up, probably 13 and up, they was either gang banging or they was playing basketball. The kids won't see their mom again because dude's not aiming. It was, and now today, the highest point dangerous rate ever in any state. even though I was around it and seeing the struggle, I didn't have to deal with it because my mom had a great job. Well, it wasn't great enough to get us out of the environment we was in, but it was good enough to provide for our family and make sure we had food. Because even though we lived in a house and apartments across the street, even the rent wasn't as high wasn't as much as it's supposed to been because of the environment that we was in. The reason my mom made sure we didn't struggle and made sure I didn't have to go through the things that my friends was going through. She made sure I had everything I wanted and made sure that I didn't have to want for anything. Even though I had everything, had food in my house and everything a kid want, I still lived in poverty. Every day I walk to school and see crackheads in the alley smoking, or I see somebody my age smoking before school, and I'm talking about grammar school. Most of my friends' parents were struggling, and they had to commit crimes. Well, they didn't have to commit crimes, but we was young. We was in grammar school, so we didn't have a job. So they'll commit crimes, breaking into homes, doing illegal things just to provide for their family. 13 years old, 12 years old, just to eat every day and give it to their mom. As I got older, through my high school years, I was big on fashion and I had money saved up from jobs that I had. So I give money or clothes to my friends that didn't have much as me. And I give them food as well. The food that we didn't have, that we left over, then we didn't eat, that was left in the freezer, I asked my mom, can I give to their family? And I just give clothes that I didn't want. I never thrown it in their face or told anybody that I was giving them clothes or money because I didn't do it for no brownie points. I just did it from the kindness of my heart. I didn't want to see nobody struggling, especially as a young age. Because you young, it's you supposed to live it up. Like, it's supposed to be fun. Life's supposed to be fun, not thinking about or trying to make do as young. Like, you're not even grown yet, and you making sacrifices or doing something you're gonna regret in the long run, because you can go to jail for it, and it will mess up your records. And you're a kid, that won't look nice. I'm pretty sure someone in this room was short on cash, or they went somewhere or maybe left their money at home, or even needed gas and they left their money at home and didn't have it. So just picture you guys leaving your money at home every day. Like, what you're going to do now. So as I got older into college, I play on the Moraine Valley basketball team. Every Thanksgiving, we'll give turkeys to families and food to families that probably wasn't homeless. I won't say homeless, but that needed it. It was homeless people, and it was people that needed it. Like, it's a big difference from not having a place to stay, living on the street, and having a home, a roof over your head, but you're struggling. You barely making do. And we want to help everybody that need help. And this is my second year here, and I was fortunate enough to pick this class and do some more community work. So one of our projects was to go to a shelter, or not even a shelter, do anything that can help. So I picked going to a shelter because I think I can relate to them people, because I was around it since a young age. So that's why I picked this community service. Going to the shelter was a great experience, and to help out the community in the homeless shelter. I had a lot of other ways I can help out people that was less fortunate, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to work hands-on and see the people's reaction. instead of just donating and not seeing the people's faces, not seeing me put a smile on somebody's face or seeing me help somebody, I wanted to be there. Doing work that will make a difference, but not seeing the people's reaction. As I was talking to the lady that run the shelter, the bed shelter, her name is Rhonda. She told me that her shelter is the closest shelter to Palos, and the shelter I was at was in Oakland. That's a big gap, distant gap from Palos, and some of them people didn't have cars, so they have to walk. I think it would be great for each one of us to introduce this idea to our community, to open up a shelter or even a set day to give food or clothes. So you can go to your neighbor's house or every house up in your community and introduce this to them. And they probably already have something going on, a shelter or anything that's giving back to the community that you didn't know about, and you can contribute and join along with them. So introduce this to your community, and like if each one of us go through with this, it would be closed shelters everywhere. Even if you don't have like a church up in your community or a place to even have the event, you could have like a garage sale, give away your old clothes once, like every month or something in the summertime, because it's summer coming up, and just that'll be a big help to the community as well. Because homeless people, they are our community, and I don't even like to label them as being like homeless people. They are humans, just like us. So they are a part of our community. They are a part of us. We just more fortunate, and us being more fortunate, we could use that to help them, and they can step it up a notch. You can do anything. Make America great.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lexie. And when I was growing up, I grew up in some bad neighborhoods. There was a lot of shootings. I remember times where we would have to, like, duck and cover in our houses because there were, like, gangbangers outside and they were shooting out in front of our house. And like, there weren't the best schools. They were good schools, and I was fortunate to go to a pretty nice school, but they weren't the best. And even in school, there were like gang members and people who would sometimes find ways to bring guns in school just because they thought it was cool. But it was like very scary for me. Like, to see somebody with a gun, you didn't know what was going on. My mom and dad split up when I was little, before I could remember, and I didn't really see my dad that much. He wasn't around. He didn't really provide for me. But my mom was basically a single parent, except for my paternal and my maternal grandparents. We were kind of on the low-income side of the spectrum, and my mom had a job, but it wasn't anything major. And while she was at work, I was with my paternal grandparents, and it was a lot of kids. There were a lot of kids in their house. They had all my aunts and uncles, and they were stepkids and us, and it was just a lot of mouths to feed. My grandma couldn't work at one point because of her back, and my grandpa was the only one who was providing any income for us. And I thought our life was great. I didn't realize any problem with our life until I got older and I started seeing people kind of judge things that I had or like the situation that I was in. And I think media also played a part in my realization. I began to see other people's struggles too, though. So like with this realization that we weren't the richest people ever, came the realization that there was people who were like worse off than us. So I began to see their struggles. I became grateful for everything that I had. Like, we didn't have to go to shelters. We went to school. My grandparents had jobs, and we had necessities. Like, some people can't get presents at Christmas. Like, we had Christmas presents, we had birthday presents, and our life was great. So not only were we better off than some of these people, but because the United States is one of the richest countries in the world, I think everyone here is better off than maybe somebody across the seas, or there's like a lot of poverty-stricken countries in this world, especially in like Africa and South America. So with that, if you've ever seen a homeless person on the street, that's nothing compared to what some people across the seas have to deal with every day. Like, there's ways in our country that we can get food even if we're struggling. Like, there's shelters and there's food pantries and things like that. But across the seas with these poverty-stricken countries, there's really no way for them to get this. Like, their neighbors who, like, we have neighbors who can possibly help us, but they don't. Like, everybody's struggling there. So there's these people who struggle, they have to go miles to find water, to get food, and who knows if they can even afford food, because they might not even have a job, and jobs there don't pay like jobs here. Like, they get maybe $1.50 a day. But with that, there's no access to hospitals and no access to school, because they either don't have any way of getting there, it's too far, they might not have the energy because they don't have food, or they might just not have the money to pay for it. So, based on a list of the least developed countries compiled by the United Nations, 34 of the 48 countries on the list are in Africa. Stories of, like, I've read stories online of people with no food for days who their only way of getting food is, like, growing it themselves. And we all know, like, plants don't just come in a day. They have to wait for that stuff, and they have to work on it, and that takes energy. So this energy that they take making their food, they could be going to get water, but because they need the food, they don't go get water, and they use, like, the nearest water, which could be really dirty. I read stories about kids who would have to drink this water and they would get sick. Caitlin was talking about, they get diarrhea or malaria or any type of disease like this, and because they don't have this energy, like I keep saying, they can't make it to the hospital, and they probably can't even afford the medicine that would be available to them. And realizing that what poverty looks like is really eye-opening. Like, all these stories really opened my eyes, and this is part of the reason that I picked working bikes for my service learning project. Hearing all of these things makes me really wish that I could do something. I hope you hearing this would make you want to do something too. It might seem impossible thinking that you can make a difference from across an ocean, but once you get out there, you find ways that are available to help, and all you have to do is really lend a hand. Like, you can do anything from volunteering to donating, and in this organization, Working Bikes, you can find them online, actually, workingbikes.org. And this organization takes old and useless bikes that probably go to the dump, and they fix them up. And when the shipment room, it's a really huge room. When I went there, it looked full to me, but a man that I was talking to, his name was BK, he told me that it wasn't full at all. Like, it wasn't even halfway full. And they work to fill this room, and once it's full, they ship it out to mostly in Africa, but sometimes in Latin America too. the bikes are essential to these people's lifestyles because they provide the transportation that they could use to go get water and go get food, go to work, go to like school, and even go to the hospital. The energy that they wouldn't have to walk there, they could just use their bikes. And so you can volunteer by helping fix the bikes, or you can even come to like shipping parties, and that's when they just load the bikes onto the trucks and they ship them out. And it doesn't have to be every day. Like Jack said, like you don't have to do this every day. It could be once a week or once a month, whenever you can. And it makes a really big impact. And especially in this organization, they ship out 6,000 bikes a year. That's 6,000 families that have a way to reach the necessities that they need to live. And so work that seems small, like giving an hour of your time to help fix these bikes, can really make a big impact. So will you help the cause? There.
Well, I know that we're not done with our lineup, but we're running short on time. But we do have this very same space reserved for Wednesday, where we will get the remainder of our speakers. Okay, because I don't want to cut anybody short. But I did want to save just a couple of minutes, since we have a couple of minutes, to see if there's a couple of less familiar faces in the room. If you have questions, or if anybody has questions for any of our speakers, we do have a couple of minutes if you wanted to make any comments or ask any questions. I'm just offering the opportunity if anybody would like that. Going once, twice. Okay, very good. Then I just wanted to say that so far, excellent. I'm inspired and moved by everything that everybody has to share. And I know this is not easy. You all know this is not easy, to stand up in front of a group, regardless of how familiar or not, and a camera, right? To talk about things that are personal to you, things that you care about, to ask people to do things. It's not easy. But you all know also that this semester we've been working on trying to develop the skills necessary to affect positive change when we see that it needs to be done. And in my mind, a large part of those skills are communication skills, right? So I encourage you all to seek the opportunity whenever you can to talk to others, whether it's one-on-one or in front of small groups or large groups, so that you can develop these skills. I mean, I get nervous doing this every day when I have to speak in front of my classes. Did you know that? Did you know that I get nervous talking to you every single day? I do. I mean, some days are worse than others, but, you know, the more and more we do it, the more comfortable we get. But I think it's important, if we want to try to connect with other people and try to, work towards the change that we hope to see in our communities, we need to be communicating. So that's what I have for now. Oh, there is a comment. Yes.
One comment.
For the video, if you'd like.
Oh.
Captured on the video, yeah. Thanks. Just so that it captures your audio.
So. I'm kind of wrung out emotionally from listening to you guys. I don't know how you do it. Some of the stories you told there, I'm familiar with them because I've tried to get myself involved over the years with these kinds of organizations, charitable organizations, Charity Navigator. I've heard of all those things that you were talking about. But every one of you just kind of laid down the opportunity to pick up somebody's life, and you don't think about that. And I don't know how you can sit in here and listen to all this stuff and not say, you lazy bum, get out there and do something. Really, I'm really impressed. Nice job.
Anybody else before we go? Comments or questions? All right. Excellent. We're going to reconvene here on Wednesday, okay? And bring a friend so that we can have a nice, healthy audience, right, for our remaining speakers. And thank you so much for our visitors today and for all of our speakers.